your speech, and I was really pleased about it. And we came from Italy. We did a lot of kilometers to meet you, and I wanted you to register a message to the Madhouse Italy, for the normal people in the Madhouse Italy.
Well, what's happening in Italy and Spain and Portugal and Greece is that the European Union is taking them over. And then you ask, what is the European Union? Because the European Union is not an end in itself, it's not an entity in itself, it's answerable to other entities. We're now sitting in the grounds of this hotel where the Bilderberg meeting is going on. And I could talk at length about how the European Union only exists because of the Bilderberg Group. And this coordination of getting the stepping stones of more and more integration and more destruction of sovereignty, the coordination of cross-border support for things like the Maastricht Treaty and the Lisbon Treaty, it's all orchestrated through these organizations. And the Bilderberg Group, indeed, one of the great foundations of the reason it was set up was to create the European Union and the single currency. And so what they're doing is, through a technique that I call problem, reaction, solution, create the problem and offer the solution, is they're systematically destroying the economies of the countries of Europe, which is at every point. There's that, I've still got it here, I think I have, maybe I haven't, but there was, it will be here, this has got it, which I said in the speech. If anyone in Italy is feeling that, well, no, it's not. It wasn't all decided from the start. Well, the man who is called to this day, and they still have celebrations and certain anniversaries, the father of Europe, the father of the European project, is a guy called Jean Monnet. And on the 30th of April, 1952, 61 years ago, he said in a letter to a friend, Europe's nations should be guided towards a superstate without the people understanding what is happening. This can be accomplished by successive steps, each disguised as having an economic purpose, but which will eventually and irreversibly lead to federation. Now, what we're seeing with the euro is just the continuation of that process, creating economic problems, which, you look at Rompuy and Barroso's in there in that Bilderberg meeting. Every time, and the head of the European Central Bank, every time there's an economic problem in Europe with a country, they are saying there must be more centralization of power, not just economically but politically, in response to the problem. What the people have to understand, and what people here do understand, is that the people saying we must have more centralization of power are the ones creating the problem in the first place, systematically. So, you look at the influence of Goldman Sachs. Wherever you look, with the head of the European Central Bank, Goldman Sachs, the guy who, without being elected, took over your country, Goldman Sachs. And they say about CIA people, you'll never form a CIA. Well, you never form a Goldman Sachs either. And what they're doing is they're, on one side, manipulating in their entity called Goldman Sachs, but then placing their place people all through the economic system, running it to suit Goldman Sachs and the agenda that they represent. And of course, in there, as we speak, is Peter D. Sutherland of Goldman Sachs International, who is known as the father of globalization because of his part in the World Trade Organization, which is what? When you have sovereign borders that have the ability to decide their own destiny, at least to a very, very large extent, it's like having firewalls on a computer, or having a sailing ship with its hull broken up into segments. You have walls which cannot be crossed. Like when you had the lira, you had far more power over your currency. So the idea is to take power away from people. First of all, they took it away from people. Now they're taking it away from governments to the bureaucracy in Brussels, and they're taking the firewalls away. They're taking what are known in America as the checks and balances away. And what it's doing, it's what all this deregulation is about. And it's created a situation, and the real Rubicon was the Lisbon Treaty that just opened the floodgates,
and even
in which a few
EMF.
people are dictating from the centre to everyone in Europe.
Okay. And I wanted to ask one thing more about problem, reaction, solution, and the role of information into this. Could you explain this concept in a few lines?
Yeah, I came up with this term, problem reaction, a long time ago, and if I've done anything of benefit, that was one of the most important things I did, because it simplified a thing which, people used to call it the Hegelian dialectic. Actually, this is a much more focused version of that. And it's very simple. You want to change the world or the country in a certain way, and you know that if you suggest doing it, the people are not going to like it, and you're going to get a big opposition to it. So what you do is you create a problem covertly at stage one. You blame someone or something else for it, and then this is where the media come in, through an unquestioning media, they communicate the official version of that event to the population, and you're looking for a reaction. You want them in fear, you want them anxious about the future, you want them saying, in effect, something must be done. And then those that have covertly created the problem, got the reaction, do something, then offer the solutions to the problems they've created. For instance, if I strongly suggest, I've written a whole book about it, that 9/11 was the official story is a joke. It's a comedy show. Not one part of the official story connects with another. If that's true, well, that can't be. If that's true, well, that can't be. But if you look at 9/11, it's a classic problem reaction solution, in the sense that they created the problem, and not only did they change a little bit here and there, they transformed global society. This whole war on terror and everything that goes with it, all the surveillance, all the control, all the police state, was all generated out of 9/11. An official story which we're told to believe that a group of hijackers that couldn't fly one-engine Cessnas somehow flew wide-bodied jets in a way that lifelong pilots with airlines like Lufthansa have said they could not have done. If you're constantly trying to change society, then you constantly have to create problems which need change. The last thing you want, this is a real big thing globally, because the last thing these people want is a society of harmony, peace and equilibrium. Because if you go into that society and say we want to do this, people say, it's not broken, don't mend it. What are you doing? It's fine. So you have to keep constantly creating problems. And the European Union is a factory floor of manufactured problems.
So what is your judge about Mario Draghi as the CEO of BCE, and about Mario Monti and Letta, that was last year in this meeting and now is our Prime Minister, and we face with him every day in the Parliament?
Well, Monti, that appointment of a bureaucrat, and the other appointment for a time of a bureaucrat in Greece, both connected to Goldman Sachs, by the way. This is part of this ongoing plan. And what they did in Italy and Greece is they put their toe in the water and they started the process, set the precedent. Because one of the big insiders in all this is a man called Zbigniew Brzezinski. He was Jimmy Carter's national security advisor, but that's the least of his influence. He is a major insider, and he created, with David Rockefeller, who's in there, an organization called the Trilateral Commission, which is connected to the same network as the Bilderberg Group. And he wrote a book some years ago now about a technotronic society, he called it. And this was a society that was not run by elected officials and elected politicians. It was run by people who were so-called bureaucrats and experts who were appointed on the basis of their expertise. Question immediately, who decides that? And it was a society in which bureaucrats and technocrats, hence technocratic society, like bankers and people as scientists, would be placed in positions of power running the world. And you had Monti, who was a technocrat running Italy, not only before he became Prime Minister of Italy, was he a member of the Trilateral Commission, he was its European chairman. And then you had the guy in Greece, Lucas Papademos, and he is Trilateral Commission. So, and the Trilateral Commission is Brzezinski and Rockefeller and Rothschild. So what you're seeing, it's an interesting thing about Zbigniew Brzezinski. If you want to know what they planned, read his books, because he's telling you.
It's transparent.
Yeah.
Somehow.
And so then you look at Draghi, who is a classic system Goldman Sachs placeman, and all these people that have been head of the European Central Bank have been there to advance this agenda. It's just a club. Draghi, I'm sure I remember has turned up at these things, and his predecessor and stuff. So what it is, you've got a world in which people are living in and going about their daily lives, and they see people like prime ministers and politicians and people, and they're running. But actually behind that is the real hidden government, the hidden hand, and that's what this is being exposed today. And the numbers that have turned up here, unprecedented in Bilderberg history, have shown that the people are starting to see this but in a way they couldn't see before.
In fact, we in the Parliament, we are the example of all this, because we are citizens that we have been voted by the people, and we have this connection with the people. So we're filling this gap that is created right here. And my last question, and I let you relax, would you suggest to Italy and Italian citizens to come back to their very own currency?
Oh, absolutely. Do you know, I look at the world and I see the world as insane and run by insane people. But madness takes different forms. And you know, one of the most recent forms of madness I've ever seen, and that is Croatia joining the European Union in a few weeks' time and going in to this crazy situation. And I've described it as like watching a building burning to the ground and then asking when you can move in. So I'm a great believer, not in solutions, but the source of the problem, and getting to the source of the problem and removing it. And so if the source of the problem is going into a single currency and losing your sovereignty over your own currency, then the solution is to take it back again. And what Croatia's doing is going the opposite way. And you just wonder, what, because it's not the vast numbers of people in Croatia, they don't want to go in, but they manipulate the vote and stuff like that, and in they go. So in terms of Italy, if going in has been a disaster, come out, simple as that.
So easy, yeah. Okay.
And what they've done with the European Union, with the legislation, is they've worded it so if you go in, you can't come out.
Yeah,
well,
legislation's like that.
Okay, well, you can have some legislation that I can't leave this field, but I'm still going to bloody leave it, right? Legislation or no legislation. And that's what, we had a situation once where people lived in tribes, and then all the tribes were brought together into what they call nations. And instead of all the tribes individually deciding what they did in their destiny, suddenly the one person in the centre of the nation is now dictating to all the other tribes. The next thing after that is that they brought the nations together into the European Union. And so what is that doing? It's constantly taking away power over the people to decide their own lives and taking those decisions further and further away. That's the idea. You need to take it back, because if Italy doesn't and Greece doesn't and all these other countries of Europe don't, then we're heading into an Orwellian nightmare here. Because when you look at the structure of the European Union, it's not even elected people that are making the decisions. The only reason they have the European Parliament is to say they're democratic. That's the only reason. And Barroso's in there, taking his orders, and almost everything starts with the European Commission, and thus you've got bureaucrats dictating policy to hundreds of millions of people. I mean, what are we doing? It's crazy. We need to take it back, and the people are going to have to do it, because the people who are running the countries are answerable to these people, and they're not going to do it.
Absolutely, I agree totally. Okay,
Thanks,
thank you,
mate.
Can I hide you?
Yes. Cheers. Cheers. Cheers, man.